All right, welcome back to Math Class with Andrew. Today we're going to be looking at 4 different topics that are especially useful to people who are interested in things like carpentry and construction. So if that's you, stick around. The 4 topics we're going to be looking at are conversion, Pythagorean theorem / angle facts, area and perimeter, and volume / surface area. We're going to start off with conversion today. And to begin, I want to look at the 3 main units of measurement that we're going to be looking at. Okay, so we're going to be dealing with meters, centimeters, and millimeters. And now meter is denoted with M, so if you just see an M, that means meter. A centimeter is denoted with cm, so if you see cm, that means centimeter. And millimeter is going to be denoted with mm, so if you see mm, it means millimeter. All right. Now these are our 3 units of measurement, and let's look at kind of how they're related to each other. So first off, we have a meter, and if you don't know how big a meter is roughly, it's roughly the size of an acoustic guitar, like how long it is. So if you know the length of an acoustic guitar, that's basically a meter. Okay, and now in each meter, there's going to be 100 centimeters. So that kind of gives you an idea of how small a centimeter is, right? If you think a meter is like an acoustic guitar, if you divide that into 100 pieces, each piece is a centimeter. And now in each centimeter, there's going to be 10 millimeters, so these are even tinier, right? So a centimeter itself was already pretty small. Now a millimeter is a tenth of that size, okay? And then if we look at a meter, well, how many millimeters, the really small ones, how many millimeters are going to be in a meter? Well, how do we get this 1,000? We know that there's 10 millimeters in each centimeter, and we know that there's 100 centimeters in a meter. So you take the 10 millimeters, times it by the 100 centimeters, 10 times 100, that gives us 1,000. So in 1 meter, there's going to be 1,000 of these little millimeters, okay? So these are our 3 units of measurement, how they're denoted, and kind of how big they are compared to each other. This is really important information. If you can memorize that, that would be awesome. Just do your best. And now that we know that, we're going to look at how to convert between these different units of measurement, hence the title, conversion. All right? So to start off, we are going to look at converting between meters and centimeters, right? So the biggest one and then the second biggest one, right? Now remember, in each meter, there's 100 centimeters. And for our conversions today, we're going to be dealing with these circle-looking things, right? You see one here, you see one here, there's going to be another one after, and I'm going to explain how these work. So we always put the bigger unit on the left, okay? We know meters are bigger than centimeters, so the meter goes on the left, centimeter goes on the right, okay? And now whenever you want to go from the bigger unit to the smaller unit, you're going to multiply, all right? Going from bigger to smaller, you multiply. If you go from the smaller unit to the bigger unit, you're going to divide. All right? Really important to remember this. Drill this into your brain. If you're going from the bigger to the smaller, you multiply. If you're going from the smaller to the bigger, you divide. Okay? Now, where did I get this 100 from? Well, look back. Can we see it? There we go. Look back up here. We know in 1 meter, there's 100 centimeters. So that's where I got the 100, right? Because if we have 1 meter, times that by 100, that gives you 100 centimeters. Alternatively, if you have 100 centimeters, you divide that by 100, that gives you 1 meter. Okay, so we know that it works. So if you want to go from meters to centimeters, you're going to times by 100. And if you want to go from centimeters to meters, you're going to divide by 100. If that's confusing, just stick around. We're going to do some examples. Hopefully it makes it a bit easier to understand. Okay, so first off, we have 3 meters, and we want to know how many centimeters is that. Well, let's look. If we have meters and we want to get to centimeters, we just times it by 100. So we take the 3 meters that we have, we're going to times that by 100, and well, what's 3 times 100? Well, that gives us 300. All right, now that one's pretty simple. We can just kind of do that in our heads. But if you can't multiply that in your head, or maybe future examples are more complicated, I'm going to teach you a little trick. about multiplying anything by 100, okay? Now, we started off with 3, right? Now, 3 is the exact same as 3 decimal 0.0000, right? As many zeros as you want. It doesn't matter. 3.0000 is the exact same thing as 3, okay? It's the same for any number. 7 is the same thing as 7.000000 forever, okay? So that's a good trick to know. 3.00 forever, okay? Same thing as 3. Now, if you want to multiply any number in the entire world by 100, all you have to do is move this decimal 2 spots to the right. Okay, what do I mean by that? Well, if we moved it 1 spot to the right, and we put it right in here, right, and now the decimal place is here, then that went from 3 to now this is 30.0000, or in other words, 30, okay? Now, we moved it 1 spot there. I want to move it again, so I'm going to move it 1 more spot, and it's going to go here suddenly. Okay, now what number has this become? We've got 300 decimal. That's 300, right? Well, we already said that the answer is 300, so we know that this works. But it's just a good trick to know. Anytime you want to multiply a number by 100, right? We started off with 0. Just move the decimal spot 1, 2 places to the right, and that'll give you your answer. So there's 300. So we can write that in here. 300. Now again, if you can do that all in your head, all the power to you. Probably a bit more simple. But as we'll see in the future, all examples might not be that simple. Now, question number 2. 11 meters, and we want to turn that into centimeters. Well, we've got the 11 meters. We're going to times it by 100. What's that give us? Now, you might know it. You might know it in your head. 11 times 100 is going to be 1100. Okay? Easy. But let's just say we can't do that in our head. So, we've got 11. We still looking good? Yep. Add in our zeros. Now we're timesing it by 100. So, all we got to do is move this little decimal here 1 spot, 2 spots to the right. Puts it in there. Get rid of the original decimal, because you can't have 2 decimals, right? Now we've got 1100 decimal. That's 1100. That is what we had in the original. I'm just realizing the original, I wrote it like that. That was wrong. I put 1 too many zeros in there. So it should be 1100, which is what we have right here. So again, do it in your head, move it the decimal way. Doesn't matter. We get an answer of 1100. And so we know 11 meters is equal to 1100 centimeters. All right. Now, why do we move the decimal 2 spots? Why not 5 spots? Why not 1 spot? The reason we move it 2 spots to the right is because there's 2 zeros in 100, right? So if you multiply by 100, you move it 2 spots. If you wanted to multiply it by 10, well, how many zeros are in 10? 1. So you would only move it 1 spot. If you wanted to multiply it by 1,000, how many zeros are here? 1, 2, 3. So you would move it 3 spots. But because we're dealing with 100, and there's only 2 zeros, we're moving it 2 spots, okay? Just wanted to explain that for you. So, we have gone from meters to centimeters. Awesome. We're doing great. Now we're going to do the reverse. We're going to move from centimeters to meters. Anybody remember how to do that? If we have the centimeters, and we want to go to meters, what do we do? All right? Well, we've got 600 centimeters. We're going to go to meters, so we're going to divide it by 100. Dividing it by 100. Now, can you do that in your head? Maybe you can, maybe you can't. 600 dividing it into 100. Let's just say we can't. This is why I'm teaching you that decimal trick. It's very, very useful. Okay, if you can't do this in your head, now 600 is the same as 600 decimal 000 forever, right? Now when we were multiplying by 100, we moved it 2 spots to the right. If we want to divide by 100, we're going to do the opposite. We're going to take this decimal and we're going to move it 2 spots to the left. It's going to go right in here between the 6 and the 0. And now, all of a sudden, we have 6 decimal 00000, or in other words, 6 decimal zeros is the same as 6, right? Decimal trick's really useful there, because if you can't do it in your head, all you gotta do is move the decimal 2 spots to the left, 2 spots to the right, and you get your answer. If you're multiplying, you move it to the right. If you're dividing, you move it to the left. And these arrows actually work with that, so very easy to remember. So we took this 600, we divided it by 100, or we moved the decimal 2 spots to the left, and that gave us an answer of 6. So we know that 600 centimeters is the same as 6 meters. All right. Next question. 40 centimeters. Ooh. My workspace is getting a little mudded here. Oh well. Okay. We've got 40 centimeters. We want to go to meters, so we got to divide this by 100. Now see this one. Not very easy to do in your head. Good thing we're not relying on that. We've got our decimal trick. Let's do it. Okay. So we've got 40. Hack when we rewrite that. 40. Throw in all our decimals. Lots of fun. Now, we're dividing by 100. What do we do with the decimal? Do we move it right? Do we move it left? Well, we're dividing, so we're going to move it left. How many spots did we move it? Well, how many zeros? There's 1, 2. So we're going to move it left 2 spots, right? So moving it 1 spot, we put it between the 4 and the 0. Moving it another spot, well, that puts it before the 4. Now this is looking kind of weird, isn't it? Now we got nothing before the decimal. What's going on here? It's just 0.40000. Well, anytime you experience this, there's nothing before the decimal, just put a 0 in there. All right? And what does this read? This reads 0.40000. You could leave it like that, but if you want to make it simpler, anytime there's a bunch of zeros at the end, you just take them off. So you could rewrite this as 0.4. Those are the exact same thing, just this one looks nicer, saves you a bit of lead. If you're, I don't even know, do pencils have lead? I don't know. But same thing, so we get an answer of 0.4. Okay, so we know that 40 centimeters is the same thing as 0.4 meters, okay? All right, those are good. If you got those, awesome. I just threw these couple of examples in here. They're a bit trickier. If you wanted a challenge, I thought let's do it. You know, it's always good to challenge yourself. But again, if you don't really understand these, don't panic because you'll probably only need these ones. But here we got a decimal. Oh no. So we've got 3.3 meters and we want to go to centimeters. Okay? We got the 3.3 and we want to go from meters to centimeters. Well, what do? We times it by 100. Now, it's a good thing that we know that decimal trick. You could try to do this in your head. You could do 3.3 times 100. You might know what that is. If you don't, decimal trick is your friend. Now, this one looks a bit different because we have a decimal already and we've got this 3 after. Well, what do we do now? Can we still add the zeros? Yes, absolutely. You can add a bunch of zeros after the decimal. Even if there's 3's here, it's fine. It doesn't matter. It just makes it easier for us because we're moving the decimals. We want to have these zeros already in place, so it's easy. Now remember, when we multiply, what way are we moving the decimal? Moving it to the right. How many spots? How many zeros? 2 zeros. Moving it 2 spots to the right. So we take this decimal, we move it 1 spot, we move it another spot, and it goes right in there. Get rid of the first guy. There we go. And now we've got 3, 3, decimal. So this is 330.0000, whatever, or the same as 330. All right? Easy peasy lemon squeezy. So that tells us that 3.3 meters is the same as 330 centimeters. 330. All right, guys. One more example, and then we're done with meters and centimeters. Hallelujah. Get rid of that. Okay, let's finish this off. The 650 centimeters. I'm going to go from centimeters to meters. What do? We're dividing by 100. What does that mean in terms of the decimal trick? Again, you could try to do this in your head. If you can do 650 divided by 100, congratulations, you're a genius. If you can't, let's get those zeros in there. Let's do our decimal trick. Well, we're dividing, right? So we move to the left. How many spots? Well, it's 2 zeros, so we're moving 2 spots to the left. Okay, so let's take this decimal. Let's go 1 spot. Well, let's go 2 spots. It's going to go right in there. Get rid of the original. And now we've got 6.5000. Remember, anytime there's all these zeros after the decimal, you can leave it like that if you like. But you should probably get rid of them. Just make it easier for you if somebody's marking your work. So we can rewrite this as 6.5 and just get rid of all those zeros. So this tells us that 650 centimeters is the same thing as 6.5 meters. Congratulations, guys. We did the first part of conversion.